Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for joining me today. Super excited to catch up, my man, on everything you and Indosol is doing and producing and creating. If anybody wants to listen to our original episode and kind of get the full gambit and story of Indosol, that's episode 11. I'll link that into the show notes a little bit back in the day there. I want to kind of have some interesting news and some big things that you guys have been working on for so long that I wanted to give you an opportunity to chat about, discuss. So talk us through what you and the team at Indosol has been working on for the last, couple of years or so, and what are you bringing to the world?
Yeah, thanks, Grant. Pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of what you have done and what you're still doing with Cause Artists. So it's always an honor. Indosol, it's been a crazy journey. We're in our 13th year, which is hard to believe sometimes. Like I wake up in the morning, I can't believe I've been doing this for 13 years. I feel very, very blessed that it's been my lifestyle, and it's been a hell of a challenge at the same time. COVID times were pretty tough. It was definitely a roller coaster ride with initial shutdowns and us losing retailers and our business taking a big dip, and then us battling back. And I felt like it was a true testament for our team and our resiliency. And we talk about it all the time. It's like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, kind of thing, because we spent that time renegotiating contracts and just like really understanding more about what we are doing here and where we could potentially go. The need to get more creative in various different ways, whether it's our distribution channels and how we sell the products we make, and how we're making a difference. And with that, we've always wanted to be the best company that we can be, and with having our heart in the right place and making the best product that we can and affecting people in a way. I mean, it's just we're a tiny brand and we're a tiny example of a solution to a big problem, right? But it's always been our goal to just people thinking. And we always felt like if we can get people thinking about, manufacturing and how it relates to waste and waste materials in the world, then we're doing our job, and people just kind of taking the blinders off. And that's what we originally set out to do with recycling tires and turning those into the soles of sandals, which we've been doing for 13 years and will continue to do. But the new development that you mentioned is really exciting for us, and we call that sneaker sole technology, also known as the lost sole, which was kind of this fun spin-off that we wanted to put and develop in people's minds. Basically, amongst our travels in Indonesia, and while we were pulling tires out of the landfill and grinding those to sandal soles, we discovered that there's many other waste products really useful, one of which being sneaker parts. So you have huge factories in Indonesia, which is just one of the hubs of footwear manufacturing in the world. Each month, there's millions of pairs of sneakers being made in Indonesia by the big brands that we all know and love and probably grew up wearing. Is that they are producing all these shoes, but they also have a lot of defects. So they have, these rubber soles that go through a process to be pressed into a mold. And then when they come out, they're adhered to the upper of the shoe. So it's really just the bottom part, right? So that bottom part, or that, basically like the meat of the shoe, those had been thrown away as defect. So we'd found out that some of these bigger companies didn't have a use for them, and they were throwing them in the landfill, which is horrible because it's wasteful. This are material that would take potentially up to 1,000 years to break down due to the nature of it, and also they could be used for something else. They could be a new product. So we started testing with it and started just taking these sneaker soles and grinding them down and testing with the powder. We found that we could press it into a shoe sole the same as we had been doing with the tires. And even more exciting, because when we work with tires, they're only black, right? You can't really implement any color into them unless you like paint them or something, which could be toxic. We always wanted to have colored soles because we thought that was cool. And a sustainable brand, we always want to evolve and have more style and have more fun. So the sneaker sole technology, we found that we could add colors in with like a natural dye powder and mix that in. And then we have recycled sneaker soles, and they're super durable. They're grippy, as you would think, like they grip the ground very well. and they're rad. Yeah, so we're excited about this new launch, and we got it going with a collaboration with a popular surf brand in California called Vissla, where they wanted to take the Pantone of the jade green that they use and then turn that into a jade green sole with a black upper sandal. And it looks dope. And that one's selling really well. And then we have our own collection of sneaker sole products for men and women in flip-flops, slides, and platforms for women.
I just know all the long journey you've been through, my man. It's so awesome to see you and your team stick through it. And I mean, look, like it's hard enough to build from scratch and build something like this that truly takes into account sort of every process in the supply chain. And then COVID on top of it, right? Just kind of gives you this kick in the gut. And, a lot of small brands couldn't survive. So it's just a testament to the brand as well, right? Because I think, people still try to support in harder times. I think hopefully, customers understood that, and hopefully there was some support there from just buying backlog of products and things like that. But it's unbelievable, the perseverance, man, that you and the team have had. You had mentioned that you come to find out that these sort of sneakers were kind of being thrown into to landfills and sort of tossed out as garbage. Like, how did you come even about finding that this was even an opportunity?
Yeah, thanks for all that, by the way. And yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, it's a blessing that we're still around. It's like, when you start something, you don't know like what's going to happen, right? You diving in feet first and let's go. But here we are years later and evolving. So that's great. I mean, to answer your question about the sneaker parts, for a brand like Indosole, we're small, right? We're a small team. So we really depend on our partnerships. Partnerships that we've created over the years are valuable in every way. So we have this processor in Jakarta area, Indonesia, and him and his team have always been the ones that help us collect tires, take in the tires, and then grind them down and make them into our tire soles. So the same is happening with the sneakers. And he basically had gotten a line on this tragic event that these huge brands were dumping this stuff in the landfill because through his connections, and he found there was just giant mounds of it. Like, it couldn't be missed. So long story short, he started grabbing them and taking them back to his place, his shop, and starting to work with them and trying to make them into other materials. Like, you can make them into countertop materials. Like, there's tons of different applications for these waste materials that people don't even know, and we're actually at the front end of it. So it was really exciting when we spoke with him, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm diverting all of this waste over here, and let's take a look and see what we can do with it." So we did, and we just started playing around, and there was just trial and error from there, and just getting the consistency right, the granule down to the right level, and then testing it, printing it out, and then you wear it hard and make sure it doesn't break and fall apart. Ultimately, with that is create more waste around the world, right? So if you're walking around and it's you got waste material flaking off the bottom of your shoes, you're doing more harm than good in the end. So we want to make sure it was really solid. It was going to realistically do its job, and it did. So
you mentioned that the process is it drastically did you have to build from scratch to do this process versus you had the process down pat for a decade of turning, whether it's motorcycle tires or car tires, truck tires, into these soles? Was some of the applications for that similar to when you're doing it through?
It was relieving to see a lot of our hard work pay off, and all that we've learned in working with the tires, because that was a crazy journey in itself. Because when we started, anyone that had worked with tire products in the past had been hand cutting them and then adhering them onto the uppers of shoes. So it was like a full, hand done, old fashioned upcycling process. And then we wanted to streamline that by grinding the tires down and then creating a mixture. So that was the original, breakthrough for us, was the engineering aspect of taking this tire powder and then, okay, what do we mix it with? Because it can't just make a shoe sole on its own, because it's not chemically going to be correct. It's not going to come out properly, or it may not last. It might fall apart. So it needs to be mixed. So we found that 40% recycled tire powder mixed with, some bit of synthetic and some other recycled rubber or recycled foam, and you bond it all together, and then you've got really really solid sandal or shoe sole that will last and will not fall apart, doesn't flake off. So it was that same process with the sneaker parts, whereas we just played with different formulas and different mixtures, which is kind of our secret. So I could tell you, and I have to tell
you. Did you ever think that you'd be a tire scientist? I mean, it's got to be wild. Like the stuff you're like saying is like got to be so wild, because I just the origin stories, right? Like you just kind of went on a trip to Indonesia, and now all of a sudden you're like a tire scientist. It's got to be crazy to think about.
I never knew I'd be a tire fanatic. I didn't see that coming. I don't know why. We all have our niche and we just stumble across things, but I'm just like, at the end of the day, I'm more so a sales guy. I owe a lot of the credit to our partner Kai, who had spent time and actually working with this processor and developing this material. So really he was in there, rolled up the sleeves, had to test a bunch of things, have things work, have things not work, go back and try it again. So it just matches up with the Indosol mentality. It's just, don't give up, keep in and figure it out. So we've figured out a lot on our own over the years, but like I said, the partnerships have been key as well. And hopefully we can keep this going and find something else that's like, cool waste material that might be useful and just continue, turn this into a legacy of sorts. But it's been cool to see our customers' reaction because, again, we've had like these same people buying our tire soled sandals for years. And although we're a tiny brand, we have this kind of loyal customer base and this fan base, like people that just like love our stuff. So when we release this one, they're like, oh, sweet. Like, I can extend my collection and have these new colored soles. So
yeah, especially with the colors, right? That changes a lot of bringing new customers away. I love when brands do the partnerships with other brands. I think that cross vertical is something that I kind of see more and more of, but it seems like it's growing a little bit. Is there any other partnerships that, I guess when that sort of comes to happen, for brands that would like to do that, like, do they come to you? Do you go to them? How does that process work? Because I think it's just awesome when brands do it together.
Yeah, I agree. And that brings up a great point and something that, I feel wholeheartedly is important. Especially in this day and age, is that as a footwear brand, we like to remain versatile. Again, because we're smaller, we want to be able to work with other companies or nonprofits or organizations or hotels and resorts and help them offer more sustainable products, right? Or to tell better stories about their products and where they come from and where they're going, so the customer can feel more educated and just feel more a part of it. So one of the things we really realized during the COVID times is like, necessarily do this on our own. Like, we're not like Nike, for example. It's like they don't have that budget to get everything out there in a time where it's like, if you really want to get your brand out there, you got to pay big money. You might be buying a ton of Instagram or Facebook ads to just pump it into people's faces. But having brand collaborations and brand partnerships are amazing for both sides, because then you got a new product, something new to talk about. From our side, we're happy to do it and do kind of the heavy lifting, and then together we launch it, and then you've got double the impact, double the marketing, and double the reach. So this past year, we did and that product's being sold in their stores and sold on their website, and now we're cooking a couple new ones for next year, which we're a little bit early in the process. I don't want to let the cat yet.
No worries.
But they're brands that you definitely probably have heard of, are doing good things, and we don't want to stop there. We want to be kind of like the sandal brand that's like a ninja and can be out there, like on the underground. Like, we want to be like on the underground, like not super commercial, but suddenly you'll see us pop up and be like, whoa, what? And like, these guys partnering with these guys, like, wow, that's rad.
I like that.
So it's like we're kind of a dark horse, but if we can keep having these kinds of deals and experiences, we're going to start coming up.
It's always tough to introduce new products. Wait, I know you did coasters, right? Because I'm just thinking of rubber, right? It's like you said, it's so durable. It can be sustainable if you treat it the right way, right? And it it kind of unfortunately it lasts forever, right? So if you could figure out a way to implement it in people's lives and they understand, what it can do and its life expectancy. Like the coasters, I think were such a great idea, but I'm thinking like iPhone cases and like Apple Watch bands, right? Like there is, and I know, look, product development, it's crazy, right? But like, is that
Yeah.
something you think about, or is it like, hey, we're just going to be the best sort of sole company in the world, right? And really focus on footwear.
Yeah, oh, no, that's exactly it. It's taken us longer than we ever thought of to get to this point where we're like, okay, footwear's moving strong, and we have this customer base, like we have a good nucleus off of it. It's like we're not the first brand to come up with this idea to like have this kind of sexy product at the forefront, but behind it, might be a more commercial, everyday type product, which could apply to a broader base of people, and that's kind of what our goal had been. It's just that we chose footwear, which is the hardest market you could possibly choose. We're like, oh man, like we really bit off more than we can chew, and just starting with footwear didn't move as quickly as it could. There's so many variables, right? But the idea was for the sandal to be a vehicle towards the next product line using other waste materials. And the coaster was the early release, but we're not done there. The coaster is just a symbol of what's possible, that there are other products that can be made. If you look at waste materials in a different light, there's household goods, there's home goods, there's yard, there's safety materials. There's so many useless things. The comparison I always like to use is the trash can. It's like, okay, you have a trash can in your office or something. It's like, why the heck they make that trash can out of brand new plastic or brand new rubber? Like all it does is hold trash with a stupid thing. So it's like, for example, those are the types of that's the way we're thinking. And luckily those types of recycled material trash cans are out on the market now. But how do they reach the mass? How does that become the norm, right? It's just like, so every brand or every company is making these products out of reused or recycled materials instead of new stuff.
I wanted to ask a little bit about COVID and kind of what you learned from that. And I guess that I look at it like before COVID, after COVID. So like BC, there's things functioned a certain way, right? You had your efficiencies you had down, you had sort of the business approach on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And then after COVID, right, things changed. You said, you took some time to look at partner relations and partner contracts and maybe some other things in the company's ecosystem. What did you take out of that like experience just as like a business operator on has a lot changed now after coming out of it and things normalizing a bit? Or are you falling back a little bit into sort of normal protocols?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially at the end there. I mean, like I mentioned at the beginning, at the onset of COVID and lockdowns and all that, the timing for us and for seasonal retail for a brand heading into spring/summer couldn't have been worse, because our lockdown started the middle of March 2020, which is exactly the week or the weeks that we started to deliver. So we had big retailers like REI that we were delivering to, and suddenly the email comes through like, stop, wait, don't ship, order canceled. And those emails are just flying through from our retailers. So, they didn't want to get stuck with product. They didn't want to get stuck with a bill that they knew they couldn't afford. So it fell back on us. And meanwhile, the factory was sitting there tapping their fingers like, oh, well, we already shipped you your goods. We still need to get paid. That's been out the door. But meanwhile, we didn't really have the means to flow through and pay the factory and pay all of our bills. So it's just like, as you can imagine, the bomb was just kind of dropped on us out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So there was just an immediate shock, and had to really slow things down. For me personally, at the time I had roommates in San Francisco, and I had this apartment, and I had my bedroom, and I was basically hunkered down in there like day and night, just hammering the phones, trying to figure stuff out, talking to advisors, or, they were also shareholders in the company. Like, what should I do? Like, what's your advice? Like, I got, we got this, that, and the other bill to pay, and, we're not shipping. Like, what do you suggest here? Luckily I had some some good advisors, helping me and us through it from the Bali side. And we depend so much on our team over in Bali. Like that was just shut down pretty much overnight. And then a lot of the, tourism and people that were spending the money started to leave Bali. And I really felt badly for them and our crew over there, because aside from being locked in their house, they couldn't even go to the beach. I mean, it's like, the beach is closed. Like you're in Bali, you don't have a means to make income. You can't go to the beach. It's it's tough. And then as time went on in Indonesia and Bali has just started to really just get dismantled as far as their economy goes. There was even people starving in north of Bali that just like literally couldn't even get food. So our team over on that side, shifted from a day to day of trying to get money in through our retail shop. And then they were helping out at this like soup kitchen, basically, when you got into months 2 and 3 of the whole lockdown, and creating this program of, getting food to the people who need it. And that was awesome that they did that. And, as a brand, we felt like we could be part of that, even though we were struggling hard and had virtually zero income coming in at the time. Meanwhile, I was in SF renegotiating some of our debts, like things like that. Like we had things piled up. Like I said, we owed the factory money. We owed, money to various lenders that we had taken lines of credit for 2009 in 2019 and 20 as we wanted to significantly like ramp up the business. Like we were planning for growth. So we had rolled the dice and taken some cash to invest in our marketing and trade shows and that stuff. So, with that, there came a couple layoffs. We had to let a couple people go. We were able to help them get some relief, like some, unemployment and things like that. So that was tough. It's like you never want to let anybody go. But fortunately for us, at a crew of say 14, there was only a couple of them, which were mainly on the US, and there's more relief. In Indonesia there wasn't anything. There were no stimulus checks. There was no unemployment, and it felt like in the US, even though we were devastated in the USA, people were still like, oh well, this is kind of cool, like getting a check here and there and kind of hanging out. It feels like nice to have this little break, even though it feels like the world's falling apart. But for us, like what we realized is that there's a way to run the business leaner, get on the World Wide Web and start turning it out. Also, and just in that short term, we were able to sell all the inventory we had off our website. Our website started going bananas, and luckily we were set up to take advantage of it. So we salvaged it. We got a loan from the government, the SBA, and that really helped. But what we realized on the back end is that COVID was like one of the biggest promotions for sustainability and waste control that there ever has been. You had like all this stuff double wrapped in plastic, rubber gloves everywhere that were all over the streets, all on the beaches. Suddenly there's just like all this additional crap that just been thrown at us. And then suddenly the Indosole story is like more relevant than it ever had been. So we were so grateful that people were really understanding the waste problem thereafter. And still now I feel like we're still kind of in this ramp up period where all the brands, whether it's home goods and natural supplies, are being forced to get real certifications, kind of like B Corp, which we swear by, or whether it's fair trade or carbon neutrality. It's becoming more of a thing. It's becoming more of the standard, not just like a fancy tagline.
No doubt about it. I see such a transition from everybody kind of, coming into our wheelhouse, which, we've been in for, a decade. We were kind of, this should be the norm that long ago, right? So finally, I think the transition is sort of happening at scale. You mentioned that the site kind of went up a little bit in traffic, and you saw some uptick in that. What do you think that was due to? Did you run any specific like campaigns or anything like that, or was it just think people were at home more and they had time to search and look up certain words? And like, what do you attribute to sort of the growth on online commerce was?
Yeah. Again, even though it hurt that we lost our wholesale, our brick and mortar wholesale accounts that season, we diverted it into the web. And obviously because everybody was home, they were just ordering things. And then suddenly people weren't spending money on things like going out to the bar or shopping. I think people had a bit more cash, and they were just more aware and more willing to learn about new brands and search the internet.
Yeah.
That was also in an era in 2020, right through halfway through 2021, where Facebook advertising and Instagram advertising was just lighting up. Like people were just like, it was really working, and brands like Indosol were seeing a really high return on ad spend. And we were pumping out ads and with hopes to expand our customer base and get the story out. And again, it seemed to resonate because it was a bit more relevant with simultaneous influx of waste in the world. But once we got to 2021, the playing field seemed to really even out with iOS updates from Apple, which slowed brands down in their efficiency to get these ads out, and also the data reporting. And that's still, they're still kind of thrown for a loop as far as web marketing. Fortunate for us, wholesale is back, and we're delivering to retailers again. How we changed is we tightened up our terms. So we need to get paid. We need to get paid as quickly as possible. We can't give wholesalers more than 30 days. You never know when the next pandemic's coming, or like what's going to happen. So as long as everyone can pay and pay us in a reasonable time frame, we want to go back to selling to wholesale. But it's always a new day, new problems, right? So you got supply chain has been a big conversation piece in our industry, where it's been really hard to get products into the country. So we're shipping from Indonesia, and at the beginning that was fine, and our container loads that were coming in the boat were sneaking through. But this past spring we got pretty rocked by the supply chain, and we had a container leave Indonesia in March, and we didn't even get it till like the middle of May or something. So it took like nearly 3 months to get across the ocean and into our hands, which is very irregular. On top of that, everything's way more expensive.
Yeah. And do you have to raise prices because of that?
Yeah, unfortunately we have. Because when we looked at our bottom line, we just haven't been able to make money and survive as a business unless we did that, unless the consumer will share it with us. But from our side, we're committed to strengthening the brand, and again, telling better stories and becoming a bigger part of the community. Like, so we're have this really great partnership that we're starting with a bunch of nonprofits. So maybe next time we talk, we'll be talking about that, and more so about the nonprofits that we're partnering towards, and then giving back to various nonprofits based on color. So for us, we have all these, so each color that we have for our sandals represents a different natural element. So the leaf green represents the rainforests and the jungles. Then you get shore, which represents, of course, the ocean. So we have a nonprofit that will be giving back for as attached to the shore blue, and as well as the sea salt white. And then the brown is for soil, represents the earth. The black will be a wildlife fund, and our rust colored sandal will be to protect the orangutans, for example, in Indonesia, which are an endangered species. So we got like these really cool.
That's awesome, man. You buried the lead on that. That's awesome. How did you choose I'm always interested of how people choose nonprofits that they work with.
Yeah, great question. Some of them were just, there were nonprofits that were in our network for a while. For example, this one that we'll work with on the ocean side of things called Sea Trees, and they're just like Indosol. They have a crossover between California, San Francisco specifically, and Indonesia, where they're doing things on each end. So they're planting and rebuilding mangrove forests, and also doing coral restoration projects in various parts of the world. But they started with some of these specific projects in Indonesia. So Sea Trees will be one of our key give back partners for the shore blue sandal and the sea salt. And they're one we're really excited about. And then we wanted to have different aspects which resonated with people all around the world. Like just about everybody loves animals, right? It's like you need to have one that protects animals.
This is great news to hear. I love this idea.
Thanks.
I want to end on sort of the last question is a little bit about America, right? We kind of mentioned supply chain and shipping and look, there's a lot of different dynamics that go into manufacturing. You know, there's a ton of probably rubber waste in SF, right? Or in any city in America. Is there a way to take your model into the US, or would it be just be too expensive from a production standpoint for it to be feasible to do so?
Yeah. Well, from our analysis, the footwear manufacturing part is to do it all in the US is possible, but to do it from A to Z is expensive. So what we're looking for is an outfit that's already set up to do it.
Right.
You know, that's got either half of it figured out. So like, you know, we have made connections with a group that grinds down the tire into a granule, right? So they got the tire recycling going over there. Okay, what's the next level? Who can
Right.
turn that into footwear molds, and who can make the uppers of the sandals and all of that? And we're confident we'll get there, but we don't have it figured out yet. Is all I can say. We do have a partnership in Guatemala that we've started that we're
That's great. Yeah.
producing an Indosole-like product with a group in Guatemala. So that's moving along. It's taking time, but they are really enthusiastic. And that's a country that has a ton of potential and amazing manufacturing.
Yeah.
And of course, they got waste tires like everybody does. They got the sneaker parts too. And you know, we could create something. And that what we've learned with these challenges with the supply chain is it's all about, like, you know, creating micro economies in other areas of the world, right? So eliminate the the need for shipping across the world, reduce the carbon footprint, support local economy, and have these little like micro hubs set up. And if you can achieve that and figure that out through the supply chain, that's a really powerful and really cool story.
Yeah, no, I mean, creating local jobs in these areas, removing waste, like the ecosystem becomes really powerful for all the economies involved, all the players involved. So, I mean, that's amazing, man. I hope next time we talk, there's another hub kind of spun up and doing its thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I will keep you posted. And again, you know, always love being a part of it with Cause Artist, and love to keep going.
Appreciate you taking the time, my man. I know you've had a whirlwind couple years here. Glad we finally got to do this, and really just kudos to you and the team, man. I really I'm looking forward to everything you guys do. Keep up the great work, and best of luck for the next 13 years, man.
Amazing. Yeah. Thanks, Grant.